I am the playwright of A Resting Place. Me and, I'd love to get as much community involvement as possible, so it is my name and I'm the person who typed, but I hope that the play reflects the feelings and thoughts of a lot of people from Bethlehem and certainly the history of the place. Well, the process of creating this play was long, and it's continuing to be a conversation between me and the community and the people of Touchstone. So I first got a call. Because I was the playwright of Steelbound, which was done here in 1999, I have a long affection for the town of Bethlehem and the city of Bethlehem and the history of Bethlehem, because I think Bethlehem has a very particular relationship with the United States. I mean, it was started as a utopian community, much like the United States was started as an idealistic dream of what could be and how people could govern themselves and organize themselves. And I think Bethlehem's, because of the steel, so much of what Bethlehem's job was over the history of this community was to build the United States. And that is true literally of the steel that is that is all over the United States now. But I think it's also a great metaphor for the decisions that people make in this town, as the decisions that have been made all around the United States over history have shaped who we are as a country. So I think Bethlehem is a remarkable and interesting and important community for that reason. So when I got a call from Touchstone asking, would I like to be involved in this project, it was really exciting to me because of my long affection for and respect for Bethlehem. But also it has the notion of looking at the Civil War, which I know there are various activities happening in Bethlehem. I think it's really important because the Revolutionary War involved 30,000 people fighting to establish this country, and obviously an incredibly important thing. But the Civil War was 3 million people fighting, and really fighting, about what it means to be an American, what it is to be the United States. One of the things that came up while I was doing research is before the Civil War, people would say, the United States are. After the Civil War, it's the United States is. And that sort of transformation of national identity is obviously incredibly important to all the decisions we made after, and certainly is the starting, not the starting point, but obviously a very significant moment in the development of a country. And I think that it's really important that we never forget that that happened and that we don't overlook the things that were brought up in the war and brought into the light, and how those things can still unfold in our lives even 150 years later. I've spent a lot of time in my life working with communities to create plays that reflect the lives of the people in the audience and the people on stage. But for most of that time, a lot of those people have been alive. And you can ask them. I can go to you and say, hey, what do you think about this? And how do you feel about this? And let me take this moment in the play and you give me the words to put on the page, because you know best the things that you care about and what your life is. It's very different because most of the characters in the play are people from history rather than people who are alive today. So there is that sort of, in my process, how do I possibly create true representations of what people in Bethlehem were like when I'm not able to sit down over a cup of coffee and say, so tell me. Fortunately, there are a lot of people in Bethlehem who know a lot about Bethlehem's history. The people at Touchstone prepared an enormous amount of research about the community. And there's a lot of material in the play that actually comes from things that were written by people at the time, and newspaper articles of people at the time. And so that, for me, was very much the starting place, because I could create, a fake Bethlehem that I imagined in my mind, but it wouldn't be doing the job that I was tasked to do, which is try and capture something of actual Bethlehem to remind the people who are living here now what our collective ancestors were doing at the time. And that said, there's some parts of, as history is an incomplete story. We don't write everything down. There were no video cameras. And so there was a little bit of looking also at the history of other communities in the area. Gettysburg, for example. There seems to be much more historical record of African-American people in Gettysburg, less so of the people in Bethlehem, which is not to say there were not African-Americans here. So there was a little bit of extrapolation, and certainly I wanted to make sure that if I couldn't find a written record of something in Bethlehem that was a huge part of the war, to bring in that information through bringing in a character. Say there are characters in the play who are people from the Confederacy, but it was important to, in terms of having those conversations, to bring in a broad perspective. So I started with what I could know that was real, and then sort of expanded the lens a little bit. To be asked who my favorite character in the play is hard, because one of the things you try to do as a playwright, especially when you're doing work that springs from a community, is you try to be inside the heads of everybody, because you can't write a character if you don't have understanding of them. And if you have understanding of them on some level, then you have to have empathy. So that the affection, as a writer, you hope that you are giving every character you create, putting forth the most complete vision of themselves. So I like all the characters. I mean, I don't agree with all the characters, but that's not my job in some sense, to choose a side. Although I have very strong feelings about the war, my job is to represent and to ask questions, and then it's the audience's job to continue to think and have their relationship with their history that is the relationship that they map for themselves, rather than me saying, this is the relationship you must map.